If you fall, I will catch you. I'll be waiting, time after time. Hey guys, this is Ms Tran, and I'm going to show you a brief review on how we tell time on an analog clock. So as you can see right here, we have a geared clock, and this is an analog clock. So as you can see, this clock, it has the hours, which are indicated in the inside of the clock. And in order for us to know the minutes of the clock, we have to determine that by skip counting by fives. So the very first thing that we have to do when we're telling time with an analog clock is to set it up first. So remember that when we're telling time, we always indicate the hours first and then minutes. So the very first thing that we need to look at is the hour hand. And we know that the hour hand is the smaller hand. So if we look at these two hands on our clock, this one right here that I'm pointing at is a little bit shorter. So this will be our hour hand, which I will indicate with an H. And as you can see, the hour hand is in between the number 2 and the number 3. And we learned in class that if it is 3 o'clock, this hour hand will be directly on top of it. But as we can see, the hour hand is not yet on the 3. So this would be 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock hour. The next part that we need to look at for our clock is the minutes. And when we count our minutes, we always have to start up here above the 12. Now remember, the numbers inside of the clock are not your minutes. When we skip count by fives on the outside, that will be our minutes. So I start right here above the 12, and we always have an invisible 0, or if we have a paper, or if we have our own little model clock, we know that above the 12 is 0 minutes. And then we go here, 0, counting by fives, 5, put a 0 in front, 10, 15. Now, I could go on, but you know what? Our minute hand stops right here. So that means when I look at my minute hand, which is the larger hand, it stops on the 3, but it's not 3 minutes. It's actually going to be 15 minutes. So our time on this clock is 2:15. Let's take a look at another example. All right, here's a new clock. Now the hour hand and the minute hand are in completely different spots, but we still have to look at our hours first and then our minutes. So let's take a look at our hours first. So our hour hand, again, it's the small hand, and this one is the smaller hand. So this will be our hour hand, and this larger one up here will be our minute hand. Let's take a look at our hour hand. Our hour hand is in between 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock. But if you look really closely, boys and girls, do you notice how that hour hand is really close to the 6, but not yet on the 6? That means it's still 5 o'clock. Only when that hour hand is directly over the 6, then it will be 6 o'clock. But not yet. It is still 5 o'clock because the hour hand is not yet on the 6. So now let's take a look at our minutes. Our minute hand is all the way over here. So that means we need to skip count by fives, quite a long way to go. So we always start with 0, and then we keep going until we stop right here where that minute hand ends. 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, and I stop right there because the minute hand stops right there. Now remember, our minutes for this analog clock is not the numbers in the inside. It's actually the numbers on the outside. So our minutes is right here, right where we stopped, 50 minutes. So our time, boys and girls, is 5:50. 5:50. Now, what happens when our minute hand doesn't exactly stop directly above one of these numbers? What are we going to do? Well, let's see. All right, so now we have an analog clock where the minute hand doesn't really stop exactly on a minute. So let's see what's going to happen. Well, the one thing that doesn't change is our hours. We still have to label our hours and our minute hand. So if I look at my clock right here, this one is the smaller hand on the clock. So this is our hour hand. This one right here is our minute hand because it's a larger hand. So I put an M right there. All right, so let's take a look at our hour hand. Our hour hand is in between the 8 o'clock and the 9 o'clock. Now the question you have to ask yourself is that hour hand past the 9? Is it on the 9 o'clock yet? It is not. It's not yet on the 9 o'clock. So then we look at 8 o'clock. This clock is in the 8 o'clock range. All right, now here comes the tricky part, the minutes. As you can see right here, the minute hand doesn't land on the 2, doesn't land on the 3. So when you see a minute hand that lands exactly on one of these thinner black lines, that means that we'll have to count by ones in order to figure out the time for our minutes. So our same steps is, we still follow those steps. We start above the 12. We know that is indicated with 0 minutes. And then I keep going. I skip count by 5s. 0, 5, 10. And as you can see, we're getting really close to this really thin black line. So from here to here, we have to count by ones. So this solid black line that I just highlighted, that's our 10 minutes. And so we have to be really careful and count by ones until we reach this dot. So this one right here, my little spider legs, 10, and this will be 11 minutes. Again, because when we're getting really close here, we have to start counting by ones. 10 minutes, 11 minutes, and this one right here, 12 minutes. So our time is 8:12. All right, here's one more example where we're telling time to the nearest minute. So let's take a look at our clock. All right, we got our hour hand and minute hand in different locations once again. No problem for us. Smaller hand, hour. Larger hand, minute. Really important that you know the difference between the hour hand and the minute hand. So the hour hand in between the 10 and 11. Question to yourself, is that hour hand on the 11? Not yet. The hour hand is not yet on the 11, so that means it is 10 o'clock. All right, our minutes. Again, not exactly on a solid black line, so I put a dot right here. That's like my stop sign. Gotta stop right there. Danger, danger, stop right there. Now you go above the 12, and then we're going to count our minutes by 5s. Again, when we get closer to the dot, we will have to count by ones. 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, getting close, 35. So at this solid line, it's 35 minutes. I'm not going to say, oh, it's 35 minutes. I'm going to make sure if it is 35 minutes or it's a little bit more. So I need to count by ones. 35 right here. 36. Trace that thin line as best as I can. 37. Can't stop yet. This right here. 38 minutes. Our time on this analog clock is 10:38.